It aims to get 2 Christmas dinners in sickness and in health at 11:05. This is BBC One Scotland, now the main evening news with Peter Sissons.
Tony Blair describes Peter Mandelson's resignation as a personal tragedy, but says he had to go. The Prime Minister has been speaking for the first time about the Home Loan affair as the Tories press him again for a full inquiry. On Tayside, a tragic end to the search for the missing teenager Sally Gregg. She'd been killed by the cold. And there's been widespread damage to property and power lines as storms sweep across Britain. Good evening. The Prime Minister, Tony Blair, left for a family holiday today, trying to draw a line under the twin resignations that have shaken the government. He said that Peter Mandelson's home loan from the Treasury Minister Geoffrey Robinson was a mistake for which he'd paid a heavy price. But Mr Blair insisted the new Labour programme would carry on because it was bigger than any individual.
Before Christmas, Peter Mandelson's loan from the former Paymaster General led to both their resignations. The Prime Minister clearly hoped that the departure of his closest political friend would be the end of the matter.
Peter did something wrong, he made a mistake, he's paid a very heavy penalty for it. Life moves on, the government moves on.
But moving on will not be easy, while the opposition and the press are determined not to. Tories today accused Mr Blair of having tried to save Mr Mandelson. The Prime Minister admits he heard of the loan nearly a week before his Trade Secretary finally resigned. But he says with Britain engaged in airstrikes against Iraq at the time, he could not immediately give it his full attention.
What I was focusing on primarily on the Thursday and the Friday and the Saturday, and to an extent on the Sunday and Monday, was the fact that I just sent British servicemen and women into fight. And I wanted to have full inquiries made so that I knew all the facts.
Depressing holiday reading for Mr Blair this morning, as Labour has been forced to answer further allegations and claims about ministers' conduct. First, that before the election, Gordon Brown's office received funds from Geoffrey Robinson. The Treasury confirms it did, but says the money was fully declared. Second, that other ministers were offered personal loans by Mr Robinson. The Treasury categorically denies this. Third, that Peter Mandelson accepted a free flight from an American millionaire without declaring it. He's confirmed he did, but says he broke no rules because the flight was not connected with his work. All matters that the Tories will pursue when the House of Commons returns from the Christmas break.
This stream of new allegations just reinforces the case for a full, open and independent inquiry into just what has been going on, who accepted favours from Geoffrey Robinson, whether any of those who did tried to repay him by bolstering his position in the government, and the whole culture of cronyism which pervades the very heart of this new Labour government.
As Tony Blair begins a holiday in the Seychelles tonight, the biggest danger for his government is that a flood of allegations, founded or not, may leave voters unable to distinguish between a government that promised to be whiter than white and the Tories brought down by sleaze at the last election. Emma Udwin, BBC News, Westminster.
The teenager, missing on Tayside since Christmas Eve, has been found dead in a field outside Perth. Police say 18-year-old Sally Gregg froze to death in a tragic accident. A post-mortem examination found no suspicious circumstances.
Police switched the focus of their search to fields outside Perth after witnesses came forward with a positive sighting of Sally Gregg, the 18-year-old dental assistant missing since Christmas Eve. A helicopter was brought in and her body was found on farmland. She'd been at an office Christmas party at the Hunting Tower Hotel, celebrating with colleagues. It seems she left on foot and on her own at about 11:30 on Wednesday night.
As a result of yesterday's media coverage, we received information which enabled us to concentrate our search in the Tibermore area of Perth. We managed to get the services of a RAF helicopter from Lossiemouth because of a break in the weather, and after an hour's search, the crew spotted the body of a young female.
As police carried out a final check of the area, foul play was ruled out. One officer said Sally Gregg's death had been a tragic accident. Sally Gregg's body was found in a field here at Newbigging Farm, more than 2 miles from the works party she'd left on her own. She was spotted walking alone on the road by a family in a car who asked her if she was all right. It was 3 days before she was seen again. It looks as if she froze to death during the night. Colin Blaine, BBC News, Perth.
5 people are now known to have died in the storms that battered Britain and Ireland over Christmas. Thousands of homes are still without electricity after power lines were brought down. Rail services have also been affected by winds of up to 110 miles an hour. And more severe weather is forecast for western areas tomorrow.
The clean-up operation is underway in Northern Ireland, but heavy snowfalls hampered engineers' efforts to restore electricity to thousands of homes still without power.
We've now got snow, ice on our lines, etc., and that isn't helping matters. So it does look as if while we try and get most of our customers back on today, there could be some who are still off supply tomorrow.
Numerous roads across the province were blocked by fallen trees. Gales gusting at up to 100 miles an hour ripped the roofs off a block of flats in Hollywood in County Down. A policeman was knocked unconscious by flying debris as he evacuated residents who returned today to salvage belongings.
When we lifted the roof, the lid off the roof space, that it was just sky. The roof had been literally lifted off. My aunt's neighbour, her daughter's bedroom also, the chimney stack fell down into her child's bedroom on the top of the child's bed. Luckily, the child was in with the mother at the time.
In Newcastle-on-Tyne, householders were similarly counting the cost as the gales cut a swathe across Britain.
Heck of a noise, an awful noise. Yeah. And I just came out and I looked at my yard. I says, what on earth's going on here? And that gentleman across the road, he says, you want to hurry up and get out your house?
Worshippers arriving at St Stephen's Church in Glasgow today found the steeple had collapsed through the roof, leaving the building open to the elements. Falling masonry at the Royal Infirmary crushed cars parked below. Thousands of homes in Scotland will still be without power tomorrow. The gales took 5 lives. In Brighton, a search has been called off for a man washed out to sea. Search teams found the body of a man swept away by floodwaters in South Devon, and 3 more people, including a 5-year-old boy, were killed in road accidents. Linda Duffin, BBC News.
A major search operation has been launched involving the Australian Navy after reports that up to 18 people on 2 yachts are missing after bad weather hit the annual Sydney to Hobart yacht race. High winds and heavy seas have severely disrupted the race, and several boats have issued distress calls.
About 25 Navy, Air Force and civil aircraft are searching the area, and a Navy frigate is on its way in weather that authorities describe as atrocious. More than 50 yachts have been forced out of the race, most with severe damage. Several rolled over end in the mountainous seas, losing their masts and other rigging. 3 crewmen are known to have been swept overboard, and 1 is still missing. Rescue authorities say at least 4 yachts have been abandoned. Their crews took to the sea in life rafts, and most are reported to have been picked up by helicopters. The oldest yacht in the race, a 53-year-old sloop called Winston Churchill, sent a distress signal that she was taking on water.
Mayday, here is Winston Churchill. There we go.
With 9 men aboard, she's not been seen or heard from since. It's thought other yachts, which have failed to report their positions, may have lost their masts and be unable to radio for help. With winds of more than 70 knots and 8-metre seas, this year's Hobart yacht race has been transformed into an exercise in survival.
The smallest of the 8 babies born to the same mother in Texas a week ago has died. The baby girl, who weighed just 10 ounces at birth, suffered heart and lung failure. Her parents, Enkem and Ikechukwu, received Christmas presents for the octuplets from around the world. Today they thanked everyone for their prayers. The other 7 babies are all in a critical condition. Britain and the United States have told Iraq that their military aircraft will defend themselves against any attack in the air exclusion zones they enforce in the north and south of the country. Baghdad has said it'll fire at Western planes patrolling the 2 zones.
The airstrikes may have ended a week ago, but this crisis is by no means over. If any proof were needed, this latest dispute over the so-called no-fly zone demonstrates just how real the potential for renewed conflict is.
The
Iraqi Vice President Taha Yassin Ramadan has now said that any attempt by Britain and the United States to patrol Iraqi skies will be met with fire. In truth, Britain and America have complete air superiority, and Baghdad does not want to jeopardize what's left of its air defense system. So why is Iraq confronting Britain and American forces over this issue? Part of the reason is to be found in neighboring Jordan, where MPs from all over the Arab world have gathered to discuss the issue of Iraq. Baghdad is doing everything to exploit the popular resentment across the Arab world, which the bombings have engendered, and their goal is an end to sanctions. The Iraqi authorities believe that the diplomatic initiative to push for the lifting of sanctions is now on their side. As part of this, they want to portray Iraq as the victim of what they describe as British and American aggression. And they're making it clear that in their minds, this aggression has not ended and that they will, if needs be, respond. Raghi Omar, BBC News, Baghdad.
Football and Celtic have made up ground at the top of the Scottish Premier League with a convincing 3-0 win at Dundee. Phil O'Donnell and Vidar Riseth put Celtic 2 up before Henrik Larsson's header was inadvertently knocked over the line by the Dundee goalkeeper, Robert Douglas. The result leaves Celtic still 7 points behind the leaders, Rangers. England's cricket captain Alex Stewart made a defiant century, but his team collapsed around him on the second day of the fourth test against Australia in Melbourne. He scored 107 out of a total of 270 all out. Mark Ramprakash made 63. In reply, Australia are 59 for 2.
Having lost the whole of the previous day to rain, it looked as though Australia's bowlers were keen to make up on lost time. Mike Atherton lasting just 5 balls. Worse was to follow as Mark Butcher was soon joining him back in the pavilion, and England were in deep trouble at 4 for 2. Captain Alex Stewart made a jittery start to his innings, but once he settled in, he took the game to the Australians. Leading by example, he went on to make a well-deserved century, one that was particularly overdue against Australia, being his first in 45 attempts. Only Mark Ramprakash, who's been one of England's most consistent batsmen on the tour, supported his captain, making a stubborn half-century. Stewart's downfall, having made 107, also marked the beginning of England's downfall, as yet again the lower order failed to contribute. The rest of the wickets just tumbled away, as England fell from a promising score of 200 for 3 to 270 all out. Alan Mullally, the last man out, again for naught, collecting his 5th duck of the series. There was, though, some cause for optimism, Darren Gough taking 2 wickets before the close to give England yet another ray of hope. Bernie Rose, BBC News.
And tonight's main news again. Tony Blair, in his first public comment on last week's resignations, has described Peter Mandelson's resignation as a personal tragedy, but says he had to go. The Tories are still pressing for a full inquiry. And that's all from the BBC Newsroom tonight. Good night.
Good evening to you. The weather much quieter now, but we do still have some weather problems down towards the southwest. The satellite picture here shows a cluster of cloud. There's some heavy showers. A small area of low pressure this time, moving eastwards across the Irish Sea and across northern parts of England, is going to give a fair number of showers. So overnight, those showers blown along by a near gale force wind here across the southern part of the Irish Sea, gusts 40-45 miles an hour. Showers of rain mostly around the coast and on the low ground, but over the hills, yes, we could see some further snowfall in some areas over North Wales, northern England, southern Scotland and also Northern Ireland. Further east inland, many areas largely dry, and certainly across the Highlands of Scotland we may well find dry and clear weather, and this will be the coldest place tonight, temperatures as low as -5 degrees. Possibly a frost also in some parts of Northern Ireland where the winds are light, but further south and east across many parts of England and Wales, probably too much cloud, too much wind for temperatures to get below freezing. And as we move on to tomorrow, we find a good deal of dry and bright weather across central and eastern parts of England, but those showers in and around the Irish Sea gradually moving northeast and eventually dying away from many areas, so a fair amount of sunshine perhaps by the middle of the afternoon across England and Wales. Temperatures here about 7 to 9 degrees, but it'll be a cold day across the Highlands of Scotland, no higher than about 0 to -2 in those areas where the snow is still lying. Now by Monday we've got another low developing across the Atlantic here, and that's going to move eastwards, bring gale force southerly winds and also probably a fair amount of rain on Tuesday, but the east should still be dry. Good night.